I would rag Adam for eternity if there was a record of that.
Thanks, Gaumer.
Hey, Gaumer, stop talking, because welcome to ComicCast issue number 160, brought to you by Dwayne's World Comics and Games, 457 East Sullivan Street in Kingsport, Tennessee. They carry comic books, graphic novels, statues, toys, and gaming merchandise, including miniature games, board games, and RPGs. Check them out, Dwayne's World Comics and Games, Kingsport, Tennessee. My name is Boogie Bentley.
I'm Adam Wade Adams.
I'm Jason.
And this is Gaumer.
We are at ComicCast Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, wherever you get social with your media. Also, if you are listening to this on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, and share out the link. We are joined by a special guest. We got this crazy 5-person layout. It's crazy. We're making it a thing here to invite Ringo Award nominee writers on the show. David Pepose, thanks for taking the time to come on ComicCast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
We are going to talk about the new book you got out this week, dropped this Wednesday, Going to the Chapel. I'm sure we're going to talk about some other stuff, but first I'm going to put you on the spot and kick it off here. Are you reading anything current, anything new that's coming out right now? What are you reading? What's on your pull list?
Well, House of X and Powers of X, like everybody else in comics. I'm reading that and really enjoying it. It was a bittersweet feeling seeing Doomsday Clock finally come back the same week that I dropped a book. But I'm always a fan of Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, so it's exciting to see them come back together. Die, Kieran Gillen's Die is amazing, and I saw he just wrapped Wicked and the Divine, so I got to read that last night. That was great, and Chris Sabella, coming back with Crowded. Huge fan of Chris's work. I think he's like Warren Ellis 2.0. He's the kind of sci-fi writer that I am jealous every time I read his work, because he just throws ideas out there like they're confetti, because he comes up with so many great ideas. So and Absolute Carnage. I forgot. I should definitely mention
Donnie Cates, y'all.
Donnie and Ryan are killing it on that book, and I'm excited to see where the rest of the series goes from there.
I'm glad to hear you're reading House and Powers of X, because Gaumer says only smart people can read that book.
That's our ongoing joke, yeah.
And that's why I can't read it. I'm not smart enough.
Dude, that last issue of House of X was incredible. That's going to be really on my top, probably 3 best single issue comics of 2019. That was just incredible.
Yeah, it was like Hickman doing his like riff on like Days of Future Past,
right?
And I thought, not spoiling anything, but I'll just say that moment with Wolverine and Nightcrawler.
It's so cool.
That was pretty cool. I was really into it. That's definitely. I mean, the first 3 issues like really blew my mind, and then the next 2, like I think we're sort of building up for a wind up, and I think the wind up was this issue. I think it was really good. I really enjoyed it a lot.
I feel like I need a little Orphan Annie secret decoder pin.
Yeah, right.
Understand it.
I gotta love that Krakoan little key language. It's so next level. I love that. I loved how Wolverine was just still chopping as it's like going down into the sun, and like it's still talking trash and he's chopping. It's so good, man. It was amazing. Very cool. You have some great picks there that you were reading. I think all of us are reading that stuff too. So that's very cool.
Everybody's reading that stuff. It's the best.
Except those of us that aren't intelligent enough to read it.
Okay. I'll write a Cliff Notes version once it finishes, so you can catch up.
I'll just listen to the X-Minute every week on this show to keep up with what's going on.
I just look forward to Bandjacks.
Oh yeah, that's very good.
And Ice Cream Man.
Yeah, speaking of Bandjacks, if you want to break the record for F-bombs, Ryland Grant said it pretty high a couple of weeks ago. So
that's super funny. I love Ryland. He and I are buddies. We've done a bunch of shows together.
Sure.
We grab lunch probably every other month, and I'm super pumped about Bandjacks. And if you haven't read his book Aberrant, Ringo Award nominee now. If you're looking for another book to pick up, definitely pick up my books first. But if you're looking for other books to pick up besides my books, definitely check out Ryland's stuff.
That's also a Ringo, award nominee, Spencer Locke. That was so good. I read the first 2 trades back to back.
Thank you.
Could not stop, man. And I any plans for a trilogy?
I can't confirm or deny.
Okay.
Maybe keep your ears to the ground around New York Comic-Con. Maybe there'll be some discussion. But yeah, it's I'm really stoked about the series. It was nominated for 5 Ringo Awards last year, which is
Well
crazy. We lost all of them to Tom King, but what a guy!
Right. It's
I
a
can always say
popularity
that-
contest at that point, man.
geez.
I can always say that I tied in second with Neil Gaiman for best writer. That's what I'm
Nice.
telling myself.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Since we both lost. But it's
But what great company to lose with, right?
That's exactly it. If I can lose alongside, Jason Aaron and Neil Gaiman and Jeff Lemire, I'm pretty into that. That's some great competition to lose alongside. So yeah, I've loved the book, and people have really responded really wonderfully to our series. So we have ideas, for further volumes.
Can I get a Foxtrot family, but they're all psychopaths?
I would love to fit the Foxtrot gang in there somewhere. All I'll say is there are some big names that we have purposefully not touched yet, and it's because we felt like certain characters can sustain like a one shot, and certain characters are just more of a cameo. But there are certain strips that they would sustain an entire arc.
Yeah, I'm
like
Garfield. I hope you do. I'm sure you got plans for that. But I love the Dilbert cameo in the last one. That was great.
Well, I feel like the creator of Dilbert, Scott Adams, he's such an a-hole that I was like I wrote that I wrote volume 2 a long time ago, but I was just like, Scott Adams, what a d-bag. I'm definitely giving Dilbert a swirly, and so yeah, that's the best part about being in creator-owned comics is you can you're just like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. Screw that guy, and suddenly you have avatars of Scott Adams getting his head shoved.
That's awesome.
It's great.
Well, let's hope Tom King is next.
Yeah.
Oh.
You don't have to comment on that.
Biting his tongue.
No, I love Tom. I've met him at a few shows. He's a very nice person.
He's a super nice guy. Yeah.
Super nice guy. We asked him if he was available for a pull quote for volume 2. He just didn't have the time, because he's too busy writing that New Gods movie.
Sure.
So yeah. I don't begrudge him too much over that. But no, like I said, Mr. Miracle and Batman Elmer Fudd, those are fantastic books. I love those books, so I don't mind losing to those books.
Yeah, I love Mr. Miracle and Vision. Besides, and the Porky Pig one, that was great too. But not a huge fan of his Batman or Heroes in Crisis. I think not sure if like the good outweighs the bad.
Right.
But, he's a super nice guy.
Well, I always say the big 2 is like a meat grinder these days, where you are expected to write twice as much, twice as fast as even 10 years ago. Not even 10 years ago, like even like 5 years ago. And so I give the writers at the big 2 a lot of credit, and it's one of those things. If they ever called me, I certainly wouldn't turn them down.
Sure,
but it's not breaking my heart that they're not calling me at this moment, because I'm just like, oh man, I would die if I was trying to write 2 scripts a month that were like of high quality.
Yeah.
Even with a licensed character, especially with a licensed character with all the hoops he must have to jump through. I was like, oh, that sounds like a fast track to me losing my mind very quickly. So
who would it be though?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you had
your choice.
Like, I mean, I'm not going to say like who, but I mean, if you had your choice between any character in Marvel and DC, like who would you pick?
Or something.
Shazam.
Like awesome. Oh, wow.
Shazam.
Nice.
Shazam's like my top pick. I'd love to do a team book, of course. I love the Avengers. I love the Justice League. I've had thoughts about both of those groups for a long time. But single characters, Shazam by a mile. I'd love to do Superman. I'd love to do Doctor Strange. I had a pitch idea that could be a really cool Deathlock pitch.
Cool, very cool.
This is out of left field. I'd love to do a Jetsons book.
Jetsons? Wow, cool.
Yeah.
What about the last one? Did you read any of the last one?
The Jimmy Palmiotti and Andy Connor? I read the first issue. It wasn't the same as like even like Scooby Apocalypse, where I feel like that it felt very sort of a very straightforward version of the Jetsons, which I would never do a straightforward version of anything. So I have a Jetsons idea that maybe I'll file the serial numbers off and I'll turn it into a creator-owned thing. But
Nice.
yeah.
I'd really like to see you write Slam Bradley, bring back the original
That'd be
Detective Noir
fun.
material, because I think you're great. I think you have a love for Detective Noir.
I love crime.
Really cool.
Not committing crime, writing crime.
We're gonna quote that. That's gonna
Hey,
be
whatever.
a video.
Yeah,
Hey, whatever comes along, whatever day.
none of anything that's autobiographical, it's not the crime. But I was saying this. I said this in an interview earlier this week, but I like crime stories because they're you don't have to explain the world around you that much. It's just and the stakes are already inherent. It's you're either trying to commit a crime or you're trying to stop one, but the stakes are already there. And I find that crime stories, they lend themselves. It's sort of these extraordinary, these ordinary characters being thrust into extraordinary situations. I will say, if I ever had a crime Kate book, I'd love to write a Gambit book.
Awesome.
I've got some ideas of what's some cool stuff that Gambit would steal across the Marvel universe. It would culminate in the Time Stone.
Oh man!
Because what better heist than to steal a few seconds,
right?
Yeah,
Dude, sounds awesome.
But yeah, it's funny that you guys talk about what licensed books I would do, because before I wrote Spencer and Locke, part of the reason I wrote that book was because I wasn't connecting with a lot of the comics I was reading. I was writing reviews over at Newsarama, and so the thing, and I'm sure you guys can empathize with this, is that the thing they don't tell you about being a comics reviewer is that it's like being a kid in a candy shop, but like statistically speaking, half the candy is rancid.
Yeah.
And you still are expected to try the rancid candy, even if you kind of know it's rancid. And then you're like, yep, that was rancid. Don't know what I was expecting. So it was around like the sort of the nadir of the New 52 that I was really not connecting with almost anything I was reading. There was like a handful of Marvel books that were like kind of keeping me through the week. And so I started writing pitches. I thought to myself, if DC has to do 52 books, which I was not convinced they needed to do 52 books, but I said, if they need to do 52 books, if I was running the ship, what would they be? And so I wrote 52 pitches for licensed characters. So I had pitches going from, of course, like the big seven, the Justice League, and then them coming together as a Justice League book. I had a really fun Outsiders pitch. I don't begrudge Brian Edward Hill. I love the man. He and I have been buddies for a long time, so he's killing it on that book. But if and when Brian ever decides he wants to ride off into the sunset, I would happily take on the Outsiders crew.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to leave at the end of this year. That
he keeps saying he's not writing comics, but he keeps writing great comics.
Keeps writing great comics.
Yeah.
Right.
Shazam is Shazam. I always feel like I was telling somebody at DC this the other week, it breaks my heart every month that he's not a top 10 selling character, and it's not because of the creators involved. I mean, Jeff Johns is as big of a draw as you're going to get, but it's that people don't understand the character. Like the readership does not understand the character, and I feel like Billy Batson is the way that people love Peter Parker, people should be loving Billy Batson.
It's great.
And,
especially with the movie just coming out, and then you throw Jeff Johns on that book. And I talk about it on here all the time. I don't feel like enough people are talking about that book.
Right. Well, I know the book has delays, and I'm sure that's hurt the momentum a lot. And I think the characterization of Billy has been a little in flux over the last 5 or 6 years, because I think people were thinking, oh, having Billy be like an innocent kid is like passe or something. And I don't know if I agree with that. I think for example, I see Billy Batson as the DC Universe's Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh wow. Okay.
Where he's sort of, he's a little naive, but he's got a lot of power, and his story is how does he grow into it as a person? I think there's so many relatable things that Billy Batson can be the lens for. And just because he has the wisdom of Solomon doesn't mean he has the experience of Solomon. And so seeing him grapple with things that we've all had to learn, like what's it like for him learning how to drive? What's his first kiss like? What's it like when he has to accept that death is a thing that you can't always reverse? I love Shazam. I love Shazam not necessarily because of stories that he's been in, although there are certain stories that he's been in that I've really enjoyed, but I love the potential of what he could be. And that's usually the characters I draw. I find myself gravitating towards is I don't think I could write a Spider-Man book. Like I could write a short, but I don't think I could write like an ongoing like Dan Slott. Like, I mean, because so many great Spider-Man stories have already been told. I feel the same way, to be honest, about Batman. There's so many great Batman stories that could be told that I could do a one shot, but like, you know, I wouldn't want to do an ongoing. It's the characters that haven't had those excellent runs that I'm like, well, there's clearly something to them. There's clearly something to these characters if they've had any sort of shelf life or longevity. And that's the stuff that I try to look into. I think Jeff Johns is really good at that. And I've mentioned Jeff a lot. So if your ears are burning, buddy, I'm sorry. But, you know, I think of, he did an issue of JSA about a decade ago. And it's one of my top 5 single issues of all time. It was an issue about the Damage and Liberty Bell. And these are characters that you're probably looking at like, I don't know who those guys are. I don't care. You know, Damage's whole shtick was he came from a really abusive childhood, and he accidentally blew up a significant portion of Atlanta because his powers went out of control. And Zoom, the Reverse Flash, disfigured him during Infinite Crisis. So he has a rematch with Zoom, and he's got Zoom on the ropes, and he's about to detonate himself and Zoom and a significant portion of the city around him. And Liberty Bell shows up. And for those who don't know the character, she was Jessie Quick in The Flash, and she's married to Hourman, and her logo it's the Liberty Bell with a crack in it. And she talks about how she had this relationship with her mother. It wasn't perfect. And she took everything that wasn't perfect in her life and threw it out. And she realized that wasn't the way to go about it. She looks at the Liberty Bell symbol and she says, just because something has a crack in it doesn't mean you have to throw it away. And that just like blew my mind. I thought, what a cool way to look at the metaphor behind these characters. And I feel like that's something Jeff does really well. I mean, he does it with the Green Lantern run of sort of, you know, being the light in the darkness, sort of, you know, the emotional core for the rest of the emotional spectrum. He did it with the Flash. He did it with Teen Titans, especially. That's an overlooked gem of his. And so those are sort of the kinds of characters I wind up gravitating towards the most, is sort of these characters that maybe haven't gotten enough love, or maybe haven't had that one particular landmark run. I think to myself, all right, well, why is that? What can we lean into that'll make people think, oh yeah, I want to read a Deathlock book again?
Yeah.
So
you know, that's hard to do in this climate too. It's hard to, isn't it difficult to go to a publisher and say, hey, this character that's been ignored forever, I want to reinvigorate him. That's a risk, right?
Yeah. Well,
it's difficult to do that.
It is difficult. I talked to, it's funny, I talked to every publisher that I can speak to about Captain Planet, because Captain Planet is sort of my, like, that's like my white whale. I really want to write a Captain Planet book. And yeah, everybody's like, oh, okay, that's funny. And I was like, no, it's not funny. Like,
right?
Captain Planet's awesome. Captain Planet could be a super awesome book. And whichever publisher winds up publishing it, if they don't call me, I'm going to lose my mind. Because
who's got Captain Planet?
Nobody so far.
Oh, wow.
Because Ted Turner himself personally helped develop the project, so he is very touchy about about people doing stuff with it. So, but yeah, I feel like it is a challenge. I mean, pitching books in general is a challenge, and you know, especially when you're sort of nobody knows who you are. I feel like I've been about as successful with Spencer Locke and Spencer Locke 2 as humanly possible. And still, I'm still at that stage in my career where I kind of had to convince publishers that I'm worth working with, that like I can sell a book and that like it'll be a high quality book that will stay evergreen on a shelf. My current book, Going to the Chapel, for example, we pitched that all over town, and I can't tell you how many publishers said, we love this idea, we have no idea how to sell it. And you know, I still run into that from time to time. And I think, you know, for me, I always see it as, you know, success is never overnight, and you have to earn your reputation. And the more books that I put under my belt that solidifies that reputation, the better my career in the future with licensed books will be. Sure. But yeah, it's definitely, publishers are naturally very conservative, and I get it. They have a risk that they're trying to mitigate, and every creator that they've never heard of is a risk.
Well, Action Lab Danger Zone knew how to sell it, so that would tell me the other publishers need to look at who they hire to sell stuff. Then because Action Lab, I feel like lately Action Lab has been. they've been on a roll.
Yeah, and Banjax, and then you just high quality comics.
Yeah,
you guys alone,
and it's thanks to the creators, but Action Lab's been stepping up to the plate, and taking care of business.
Well, we've been really fortunate that there are a lot of publishers who want to muck around with stuff, and I feel like that's often to their detriment because I think most publishers don't really have the infrastructure to be doing all the things that they need to be doing to the best of their abilities. They just and so often publishers will say, "Well, we'd like to spend a lot of energy finessing your story," which I think is the last thing that they need to be doing. I think if they've accepted your pitch, they can give you notes at the onset, when you're in the outline phase. But like once you've outlined your story, just get out of the way. Like Action Lab's very good about that. But Action Lab, they let us call our own shots. And so, it's one of those things I don't want to minimize Ryland's stuff because Ryland and we've had a lot of talks about, well, how do you promote a book? And so it's really the thing, any indie book that you've heard of, chances are it's because the creators have been knocking on every single door humanly possible. Publishers can try to help, but oftentimes they just don't have the bandwidth to do a whole lot. And there are still outlets who will, kind of not give us the time of day because it's Action Lab. And that's always, a little irritating. But at the same time, you keep grinding. I feel like that's good training for any indie creator. But yeah, it's tough because most publishers, I think, Boom has a really good ground game. I think out of all the publishers I can think of, they're sort of, I think, the best ones in terms of delivering what you would think of as a traditional publisher package of sort of they're doing the sales calls, they're reaching out to the stores, they're reaching out to press. But most publishers, and Action Lab included, we got to do a lot of our own legwork. And I think the difference that sets Action Lab apart versus a lot of other publishers is Action Lab doesn't get in their own head about, well, what's this look for our brand, or what's this look for, what's the profit and loss statements that we're going to take on this. Their thought is, does this book look cool, and and do we trust that this creator can sort of deliver a quality product to us? And so that's why I've really enjoyed working with them. I feel like maybe I'm a little bit of a control freak, but I feel like my books, part of the reason why I'm so enthusiastic about selling them is because they've turned out exactly as I envisioned them. And it's because Action Lab, the only things they've ever asked me are you going to hit your deadline? And most of the time the answer is yes. And some of the times it's like, hey, my colorist or something is running behind. Can I get a couple extra weeks? But yeah, is that typically how it works at Action Lab? They're just dealing with you, and then they're like, okay, go make your comic, and then we'll take care of everything else. Yeah. And are they setting up promo for you, or are you doing all that? Or is it like a symbiotic sort of thing where you guys are sharing info? Well, I got my start in publicity. So I worked at CBS in New York, and so between that and working at Newsarama, I know a lot of the players out there. Sure. So usually the Action Lab will let me take point, but what I will say is, hey guys, this is what I'm going to do. Let's double up. I've written a press release, for example. Can you send this out to your lists at this time? And I think that's very helpful. Most publishers, they'll never have enough bodies to throw at the problem what probably they would need to throw at the problem. So, it's really incumbent upon creators to anything that you can do to go the extra mile. Like, I think that is the biggest misconception about indie comics. And until you're like working at the big two, you're this is probably going to be you. the biggest misconception is they think the job ends when you turn in the script.
That's the
It
first
does not.
part.
It does not. That's the easy part.
And then, like what you said earlier, by the time you get to DC or Marvel, you don't have time to really promote. You're just writing and creating all the time, which is what they want you to do.
Which is what they want you to do.
Sure.
And there's still creators who I think are really good about it. Scott Snyder's really good about it.
Yes.
You know, he
tweets us every week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm buddies with him, and you know, he would message me anytime he had a big new book out, just be like, hey, you know, want to make sure you guys got it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I try to do, you know, with my books, because, you know, I think, you know, reaching out personally goes a long way. But yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into my job that isn't writing that I actually wish I had more time to do writing. I mean, I do promotion, I run my own social media, I do store calls and store emails, I do conventions, I do store signings. It's being a comics pro is it's the fun kind of busy, but it's still busy. And I'm still trying to figure out ways to like carve out more time in my schedule to actually do the work that I need to do, because I'm already not the fastest writer, while still doing all of the infrastructure work that needs to be done to make sure that the book works. And the worst part that, you know, most people don't realize is you can still do everything you can, and so much of it's luck. You know, I mean, I believe in my books, and I think that really helps kind of push us across the finish line. But for example, you know, Patton Oswalt got a copy of Going to the Chapel. He picked it up. He must have seen a write-up that we had somewhere, picked it up, and he liked it so much he tweeted about it.
I saw that.
It was awesome.
It was a cool tweet.
It was super cool. Suddenly 4.5 million people got to see my book. But that's not something we could have ever accounted for or planned for. Sure. And I think, you know, I would be shocked if that didn't turn into some sort of sales bump. But, you know, that's luck. And there's so much you can't plan for that I think that's why it's incumbent upon creators to try to plan for as much as they can, so they can kind of, you know, when the bumps in the road hit, you're not going to get too thrown off course.
Yeah, we were talking about it before you actually jumped on and we went live. We were talking about the importance of letting people see who you are as a person versus, listen, you're the Spencer and Locke guy, great story, Going to the Chapel. You know, it's a good comic book. But when you put a face with that writer, and I told you when we were trying to iron out when you were going to come on, I actually heard you on the Talking Comics podcast. Yeah. And I loved hearing what you thought about other comics. You weren't just on there talking about your book. You felt like a co-host on the show. I think that's so important to what you're doing.
Well, you know, it speaks to, I think, I had a zigzag career. And for those who've heard me on other podcasts, they might know this, but, you know, I got my start. I was a DC Comics intern. I worked in editorial. I worked on Batman R.I.P., Final Crisis, Green Lantern Secret Origin. And it was during the recession, so there were no jobs. Mm-hmm. But I wound up sort of an assistant editor, had sort of graduated from Newsarama as a reviewer. So she connected me with her editor there. That's how I started writing reviews. And I wound up becoming the reviews editor over there after a while. And but I also, you know, I was working a day job. I was a crime reporter. So I wrote reviews in the morning, and then I covered crime at night. And I, you know, then I wound up working in publicity at CBS after that. And then I wound up moving to LA, and I worked at a management company for a little while until Spencer and Locke came out. And all these experiences at the time didn't feel connected. And now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't have, you know, I wouldn't have any success whatsoever if I didn't have all of these components.
Nice.
And so I try to look at these things a little holistically, and, you know, somebody I'm sure could make the argument of jack of all trades, master of none, and you know, jury's still out. I mean, you know, I'm still pretty young at this, but I think having a breadth of a knowledge base, you're going to need it as an indie creator. And so, and plus, I mean, I'm sure you guys feel the same way. I mean, I'm into comics because of love of the game. If I wanted to be in comics just to get rich, I'm an idiot, because you're not getting rich in comics. You know, it's going to be a while before, you know, I'm gonna have to be in this for a long time before I can write like an Arkham Asylum or something, you know, where like I've heard apocryphal rumors that like Grant Morrison gets like $1 million a year or something for Arkham Asylum just because of how much that book consistently sells.
Wow.
You know, but it's like nobody does it to get rich. People do it because they love it and they love the medium and they love talking about it, and that enthusiasm, you know, that I hear when I talk with other people about it, it's infectious. And I always joke that that's why I love doing interviews and I love doing conventions and I love doing signings. And to be honest, I'm kind of like, oh man, like I have to carve out some time to write these pesky books so I can keep doing it.
Right.
Because I feel like comics are sort of, it's like this secret fraternity. And sometimes you can kind of smell your own, sometimes literally. But I feel like, you know, that's the brotherhood or sisterhood, you know, is that, you know, you see when you talk about, when you mention, oh, hey, I really like Shazam. Suddenly you see that light up in their eyes, and you see them start to nod, and you're like, okay, we could be friends. So yeah, I mean, I always say it's the hardest job I've ever had, but it's the most worthwhile job I've ever had, and it sure as hell beats digging ditches.
Yeah. I kind of compare it also to like being a music fan, you know, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I want to make a band now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, as a huge comic fan, I'm at the point where it's like, oh, I'd love to write one. You know, it's got to make the time for it. But like, did you have kind of like that point? You know, what was the tipping point for you?
Well, so the tipping point, I mean, honestly, you know, it was I wasn't connecting with a lot of books, and so I thought to myself, I had this sort of thought in my head that was like, oh, if you're so smart, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? And so I had written scripts before. I spent 90 days writing a short comic script a day. And it didn't matter how bad the idea was. It was just, you know, get the beginning, middle, end, you know, all that, just to get the structure down. And so I'd written a screenplay. I'd written a couple of teleplays. But you know, Spencer Locke was my first sort of comic script, my first full-length comic script. And I wrote the first issue, and I was like, that was really fun. And then I was like, oh, well, let me write a treatment, see how that goes. And the treatment went really fast, which does not usually happen for me. So I was like, oh, that was fun. Let me try to find an artist, see how that feels. And I connected with Jorge Santiago Jr. And then I was like, oh, these pages look really good. You know, I found a colorist, Jason Smith, and I was like, oh, these pages look really good. And then the lettering, you know, I've known Colin Bell, our letterer, for a long time. He was one of my reviewers at Newsarama. And so I saw the letters come in. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to shop this around, see how this goes. And the times that we'd get rejections, I was suddenly feeling not defensive, but I was like, oh, I'm definitely pitching this again. Like not out of, well, a little bit out of spite, but more just out of like, oh, these pages are like kind of cool. And like, I just want to exhaust all of our options, see what happens. And then suddenly Action Lab says, this looks really good. How soon do you think you get this book done? And that's when I felt that like cold chill run down my spine. I was like,
oh, it's happening.
I
was like, I have to write this book down. Yeah, so it was sort of like I was like the frog, you know, in the boiling water, where it was like just slowly the temperature was starting to rise. I never really made a concerted effort to be like, let's put on a comic, because I would have psyched myself out. It was sort of this very incremental stage, because I never saw myself as a comics writer. I never really saw myself as a comics writer until we sold this thing. And to be honest, I still never saw myself as a comics writer until we started getting the first reviews in, when people were starting to really like it. And I was working at a day job where they abused me. So that's when I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to take this anymore.
I got people who love me.
Yeah. I was like, I'm getting beaten up at work and I'm getting good reviews at IGN. Why am I still here?
Nice.
So, and yeah, you know, it's, I never thought I would, I honestly thought I would be an editor. And then I realized, talking with enough editors, that I realized, oh, I would not be good at this job. And so, you know, like I said, zigzag. But I think I wound up exactly where I needed to be. But the universe had to push me in a few other directions first.
That's very cool.
Well, let's talk about. We keep talking about Spencer and Locke. I tell you, you're the Spencer and Locke guy.
Let's actually remember earlier, David, you had talked about the what was it, going to the chapel, like a convention, something happened.
Oh yeah.
So Well, first off, just to give everybody sort of a heads up about my new series, Going to the Chapel, which the first issue just dropped on Wednesday, and I've been describing it as Die Hard meets Wedding Crashers. It's about a gang of.
I preferred the Reservoir Dogs had a baby with Arrested Development, but that's just me personally.
That's a pretty good one too.
I love it.
Or Arrested Development having a baby with Reservoir Dogs and then taking that baby to a wedding. It's about a gang of bank robbers that thinks it would be easier to rob rich people's weddings than it would be to rob banks, and finding out just how wrong they are. So, for fans of Crowded, The Fix, Assassination, Sex Criminals, even the Kelly Thompson or Fraction runs on Hawkeye, this is kind of the book for you.
Love those all.
It's a fun book, but it's an interesting book because at its core, it's a crime story, but it's also a romantic comedy. Our lead character is actually a bride with cold feet. And before she can say anything, her wedding is hijacked by a group of bank robbers known as the Bad Elvis Gang. And the problem is that what was supposed to be a simple smash and grab, Emily, our bride, her dysfunctional family kind of flubs up the heist. And so suddenly it turns into a hostage situation. And that's sort of where the fireworks really start to kick off. And so I had an interesting story about our book launch with this, namely that the night before the book dropped, I wound up in the emergency room with a kidney stone. Oh. And so I went to the ER around 2:30 that morning. I got out around 5:30, went to sleep for about 2 hours, got up and went to a signing. Wow. And as I'm sort of standing there on painkillers, and thankfully I knew my pitch well enough to sell it even on painkillers, I suddenly looked down at my phone and my Twitter's blowing up. And I was like, that's weird. My Twitter's blowing up. Why is that? Oh, Pat Oswalt just tweeted about our book.
Nice.
That's wild. So I had a lot of friends messaging me that day being like, wow, Kidney Stone and Patton Oswalt, you're having a day.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I was like, I kind of not sure if this is real since I can't really feel half my body at this point. Like, is the simulation breaking? But it just goes to show that, and I tell this to comics editors, keep hiring me because there's clearly nothing I won't do to sell a book. I will get up and walk off a kidney stone in order to make a store signing. So imagine what I can do for you.
There you go. You take the good, you take the bad, you mix them both, and there you have Going to the Chapel.
Yes.
I've got links in the descriptions for Going to the Chapel. I think I just linked it to you as a writer on Amazon.
Yeah. And you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at PeposeD. You can also follow Going to the Chapel on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Go to the Chapel. You can also follow Spencer and Locke on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Spencer and Locke. I mean, the thing about this book is I felt like romantic comedies got a bad rap. Not just in the direct market, but in pop culture. I mean, there are a lot of people, if you say, hey, do you like rom-coms? They'll kind of be like, no, why would I like rom-coms? When we first started talking about the book, I would ask people at conventions, do you like rom-coms? And they'd all, wrinkle their nose and be like, no way. And I thought about, why is that? I think a lot of guys, they think that their masculinity is being threatened if they say they do. And I think a lot of women feel like their respectability is being attacked. They think, that people will think they're dumb or shallow or basic. And my thought is that romance is, some of my favorite movies are like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or About Time, or 500 Days of Summer. Even going back to like older, more dated movies like Chasing Amy or When Harry Met Sally. Romance is the common thread here. Mm-hmm. And I think romance is a really effective way of building up emotional stakes that they're not necessarily life and death. But it's a way to establish stakes that doesn't involve shooting somebody, And so I think romance is just as flexible of a genre as sci-fi, superheroes, as crime. And yet the direct market hasn't tried it. I think it's way more prevalent in the book market, Scholastic and Random House and the like. But Diamond, it doesn't happen. And I thought, what's the way to build the comics industry? Like, existentially, how do we build the comics industry in a way that our kids are reading these things? That, how do I get to be a 30-year man like Morrison or Slott or Jeff Johns? And the answer is you got to bring in new readers. You got to bring in more readers. You have to build a wider consensus and bring more people into the table. Sometimes that's going against the grain a little bit and writing a comic that maybe people who don't read comics would suddenly perk up at. And that was Go Into the Chapel in a nutshell. And I can't tell you how many publishers we spoke with who said, we love this idea and have no idea how to sell it, which of course made me want to sell it harder. And that's why, we were giving Action Lab a lot of credit earlier. And I give them all the credit in the world is that they don't mess with the books, which is huge. And they say, like, this looks cool. Like they don't get all up in their heads about like, how's this going to fit in with the rest of our catalog? They're just like, this is a cool book and let's print it. And that's why I'm so excited to work with them. And I have at least one more book in the queue with them that we haven't announced yet. Probably more coming. So yeah, they've been
any hints on that one.
All I'll say is if you've been fans of my current work, you'll be really happy about this.
Oh, very nice.
But yeah,
I want to say I love the Dead Elvis.
Thank you, Romero.
It's like Elva, and then this one guy's like, I'm going to be Dead Elvis.
Yeah, he was one of the first. When I thought about I thought about Point Break.
Sure.
With the dead presidents.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, well, what's the kind of shtick that our bank robbers would have? And I thought of the Quickie weddings in Vegas, and I thought of the Elvis impersonators. Like, oh yeah, the Bad Elvis Gang. That's awesome. And then I thought, I was like, well, but there's only one Elvis. Like, how do you do that? And then I was like, no, there's actually more Elvises than that, because like you think of young Elvis, and then you think of fat Elvis, and then you think of dead Elvis. And then, we threw an African-American Elvis. And I thought the whole thing was just like, it summed up our book perfectly, because it's that unique intersection of like comedy and style. And I think that's something that we hit that intersection really hard in Go Into the Chapel, where we kind of shift between this very cool action with this just very dysfunctional comedy.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why I talk about Arrested Development so much, is that it's like if the Blue family was caught in a bank robbery, how would they react? This is kind of how they might react. These very rich, clueless people in a life or death situation, and they're getting mad because like they can't check out their stocks on their cell phone. But yeah, it's just, my thought was I wanted to write a rom-com that everybody would like.
Nice.
And I wanted to make rom-com not such a dirty word. And so by saying like, hey, are you a fan of Quentin Tarantino? Are you a fan of Veronica Mars? Are you a fan of Hawkeye or Sex Criminals? If you like any of these books, you're going to love Going to the Chapel. And so far, the reviews have been nothing short of stellar. We've been really excited about all the reactions we've gotten to the book. I think we were so far the second most reviewed indie book and comic book roundup this week. We were just one review behind Something's Killing the Children.
No.
And when I write Batman for a few years, like
right.
Pretty good company. That's pretty good company.
James is an incredible writer who is absolutely put in every due that you could possibly imagine. So like, I'm not going to begrudge the man. And yeah, I think it just goes to show that sometimes when everybody's zigging, there's something to be said to zag.
Sure.
And
Definitely.
saying, people keep saying there's nothing like this book on the shelves, and that's exactly what we wanted with this.
Chad Johnson says in the live chat, I'm gonna have to pick it up. I'm stoked about it.
Nice.
Don't let rom-com scare you. That's
right.
Every time you say that, I'm like, guys in the chat, don't let that scare you. This is so much more than just that.
If you like crime, if you like crime stuff, if you like Reservoir Dogs, if you like Pulp Fiction,
Yeah.
you're gonna be right at home with this book.
You can add rom-com to any other genre and it still be good. I mean, a good example, it's not a comic, but it's a movie, as I like to do, compare everything to movies. But there's a great superhero rom-com with a lot of action. It's called My Super Ex-Girlfriend.
Oh wow. Yeah.
With Luke Wilson and
Uma Thurman, right?
Uma Thurman. The bride from Kill Bill. I guess there you go. 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon right there.
That's right.
But I mean, it's still a great movie. So yeah, definitely don't let that label dissuade you from trying it out.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite is probably Better Off Dead. I would say I love.
Would Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back be considered a rom-com?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
I love all the characters in this first issue. Grandma's probably my favorite. Are we going to see more Sam Elliott, the sheriff?
Gomer?
I'm sorry.
Are we going to see more of the sheriff, Sam Elliott?
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. That's just immediately. I was like, oh, that's Sam Elliott. Oh.
Yeah, I channel a lot of Sam Elliott and Jeff Bridges' character from Hell or High Water. Those were sort of the big influences for Sheriff Walter Reagan, who is kind of the closest thing we have to a bad guy in this book.
He seems pretty smart, though. He put two and two together quicker than I thought he was going to put it together.
That's the thing. Is Walt Walt? He may be like a good Southern gentleman, but don't I think a lot of people underestimate him because of that. And it's like, no, that guy is smart. He comes down on crime in his little burg like an atom bomb. Nice. And somebody might argue, well, isn't that a little much for a sleepy town? And I'm sure Walt would say, do you see any crime in this town?
Right.
And so yeah, but as far as Grandma Harriet, I'm so glad everybody likes her. She was actually inspired by a real grandma. She was inspired by my grandma Helen.
Awesome. So funny.
Yeah, my grandma Helen never served in Nam, but I have the feeling if she did, she would have probably murdered a lot of people.
Right. You'd have won that damn war.
I feel like if Grandma Helen was stuck in a hostage situation at a wedding, I think she would act exactly the way that Grandma Harriet does. And Grandma Harriet's one of my favorite characters, and I've actually put the challenge out there that if anybody comes to my table at a show and cosplays as Grandma Harriet, I will give you free stuff.
Man, that would be amazing.
The free grandma challenge. So
I can see her turning her oxygen tank into a bomb or something.
Yeah,
right.
To take them out.
Volume 2.
Pulling a Hector Salamanca. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those characters, they're either based on people I know, or they're based on on actors who I think this is a cool voice that I'd like to channel. Nice. Some of it's even a little autobiographical. I laugh. BJ the Best Man is sort of BJ is my mea culpa, and the reason I say that is the whole inspiration behind going to the chapel was I was the worst best man in history in a way.
I don't know, that guy down at the bottom here underneath me was pretty bad.
Let's just say the bachelor party I planned was about as cursed of a bachelor party as you were going to get. I live in California, and my friend was living in North Carolina at the time. So I'm trying to plan a bachelor party on the wrong coast. And what wound up happening, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The Airbnb was trashed because I guess the guy forgot that we were showing up. I thought it would be funny to rent some inflatable sumo suits for the backyard, and I didn't know that the backyard was at a 45-degree angle. So we would have been just bouncing down the hill. Some groomsmen bailed at the very last second because they decided they didn't want to pay money, which I was like, great, you just hosed me. And then sort of the cherry on top, and this is why sometimes the universe rhymes. I actually wound up in the hospital with a kidney stone.
Dude.
And I wound up missing the whole bachelor party because the doctor said I wasn't clear to fly. And so
it sounds like the universe was saying, what more do I have to do to make you write a comic book about this?
Exactly. I thought to myself at the time, I was like, at least it didn't happen during the wedding. And then I thought, but what if it did?
Nice. Oh, that's great.
Because the bachelor party itself, it made me think of comedies like The Hangover, which is sort of like the bachelor party from hell. And I was like, yeah, but nobody the movie ends and they get to the wedding and everything's fine. And I think that speaks to a lot of pop culture in general, as they treat love and romance as a final destination rather than an ongoing journey. What happens when you hit the swerves in the middle of it? Or in this case, bank robbers taking over your wedding. And my first thought was, the worst thing that could happen in this wedding is if my friend's father-in-law hired some leg breakers to get him to call the wedding off. And then I was like, no, that's not the worst thing that could happen. The worst thing that could happen is if my friend's fiance, now wife, decided, I'm having second thoughts. And that I was like, there's a really emotional arc to get into there.
Yeah, you're like, I flew all the way from LA. What are you doing?
Yeah, like there's a lot that you can dive into, because I think love is not, it's not as simple of an emotion as pop culture makes it out to be. I think it can be a very complicated thing, and I thought telling that story, especially with a female character, I thought was kind of a nice, swerve to what we usually see in pop culture, because usually it's like, oh, the guy doesn't want to commit, got to drag that groom to the altar. And so but I always felt like women have a lot more to risk, choosing to settle down with one of us, and so telling the story from her perspective, and sort of this idea of the pressures of expectations, and sort of having these family pressures and the pressures of society versus just not being able to communicate.
It's like the ending of The Graduate, where they run off from the wedding, but then they get on the bus and then their facial expression slowly changes, because it's like,
now
that wasn't the ending. It's like, where do we go from here?
Exactly. And so I felt like there was a lot of fun stuff to play with in this book. Also just wedding imagery. I mean, so much of what I try to write is I try to think like, what's universal, or what's something that a wide segment of my readership just knows, just through osmosis. That's why I did Spencer and Locke, is because I said, oh, Calvin and Hobbes meets Sin City. Anybody who's ever read a comic, they probably know what Calvin and Hobbes is. Even if they've just seen the sticker of the boy peeing on stuff on their
That's classic.
Going to the chapel, everybody knows what a wedding looks like. And everybody kind of has a sense of like, what are the roles in a wedding? There's the father of the bride, there's the maid of honor, there's the best man, there's the flower girl. There's a hierarchy that's very easy to extrapolate from. And there's Upright Citizens Brigade used to say something that it's easier to remember than invent. And that's something I always try to go for, is I try to make it so people just immediately know what I'm talking about. Even if you've never been married, even if you've never been in a good relationship. I mean, most people have had some sort of relationship, whether it's positive or negative, but everybody knows what dysfunctional family looks like. Everybody knows what dysfunctional family looks like. And sometimes family gatherings can almost feel like a hostage situation. And that was kind of the metaphor we wanted to go for with this series, is that, there's a little bit of comedy, not even a little, a lot of comedy to be mined when you're trapped in close proximity with people that you've known your entire life. And suddenly that mask of respectability starts to slip. And then people start getting real and real weird, real fast. And that just, there's a lot of comedy to be mined out of that. And so I think Going to the Chapel, we kind of get the best of both worlds with that, where we're able to shift gears between action and comedy in a way that feels really organic. And in a way that I think, even if you're not necessarily vibing on one, there's enough of the other to keep you invested.
Very smart.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to more of it. How many issues is this first arc going to be?
Yeah, it'll be a 4-issue series. And if people really like the book, I've got a couple ideas in my back pocket for potential sequels. I mean, It may seem silly, but if the father of the bride can pull off a part 2, so can we. My thought is I don't want to keep readers on the hook any longer than they have to be. So, if we were able to tell it in 4 issues, I wanted to tell it in 4 issues.
That's so great. That's such a small investment for any reader.
Exactly.
4 issues. And
the thing is, you can pre-order issues 2 and 3 now. Awesome. You can pre-order issue 2, I think, through the end of the month. So you've got time to do it. But yes, any reader who tells their shop to add Going to the Chapel to their pull list, you're not going to regret it. We've got an amazing team on board, including artist Gavin Geekery, our colorist Liz Kramer, our letterer Ariana Mayer. We've got covers from Gavin, from our Spencer and Locke variant artist, Mon House. And then a murderer's row of talent for our A covers. Lisa Sturl from Long Lost did our issue 1 A cover. Sweeney Boo from Marvel Action Captain Marvel is doing issue 2. Emily Pearson from The Wilds is doing issue 3. We just announced Liz Kramer's Rose City variant, her Rose City Comic-Con variant. That's a wraparound cover. It's beautiful.
Cool. Nice.
And we just actually turned into Action Lab this week a New York Comic-Con variant that from an artist that I can't say yet, but she is terrific. She is working on a really fun book for a TV series that you've probably seen and really enjoyed. So we'll be talking about that cover, I think, shortly after Rose City. But yes, you can't go wrong with this series. And like we said, it's a 4-issue mini, and all the variant covers in the direct market are all the same price. So it's really sort of there's no wrong turns here. You're gonna love our book.
I would love to have a variant cover collection of just the 4 different Elvis masks.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Man, where were you when I was playing?
Right? I'm full ideas, bro. Hit me up anytime.
You may like then our Mon House's issue 2 cover. He's doing an Andy Warhol style cover.
Sick.
And so yeah, we've got Tom, the leader of the Bad Elvis Gang, and we've got different colored versions of him, and then we've got poor Emily stuck in the center. So
awesome.
Could
I
there
live in
be
Pittsburgh, so I'm a huge Warhol fan.
You're gonna love that cover.
It's very cool.
could there be like a surprise like fifth Elvis? That's the conspiracy theorist Elvis is still alive
It's from
Elvis.
space.
Hangs out with Bigfoot.
The fifth Elvis
with Tupac.
The fifth Elvis was inside us all along.
There you go.
Speaking of Bigfoot, you like Sam Elliott. Did you check out The Man Who Killed Hitler and then Bigfoot?
Oh, yeah,
I
that's a good
haven't
one.
seen it, but I saw the trailer for it. It looks. I love Sam Elliott. He's fantastic.
He's awesome.
Are you going
Yeah,
to
good.
Baltimore Comic-Con by chance?
I am. So
Awesome. I'm going to be there. Yeah.
my convention schedule, I'm going to Rose City Comic-Con this week, and then I've got New York Comic-Con next month, followed by LA Comic-Con, and then followed by Baltimore Comic-Con.
Wow, so LA and then back.
Yeah,
Jeez,
LA and
coast
back.
to coast.
Yes, so I'll be doing a lot of jet setting, especially in the month of October. And we just announced I will be at C2E2 in February. So yes, a busy con schedule. And any LA listeners, I'm going to be signing at Golden Apple Comics on Wednesday. And any Portland fans, we are still trying to finalize details, but there is a strong chance that I might be doing a Thursday evening signing out in Portland just before Rose City Comic Con. So as soon as we have details confirmed, I'll be blasting that on social media.
Awesome. Very cool.
Well, again, I've got some Amazon
Awesome.
links down in the description, so check those out. We're going to get David out of here. We appreciate you coming on, but hit us with any plugs, anything you want to get off your chest before we move on.
Well, like I said, pre-ordering issues 2 and 3 of Going to the Chapel is huge. The codes for that is AUG 1914 82, 83, and 84 for issue 2, and SEP for September 19, 13, 67, 68, and 69. Nice for issue 3. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at PeposeD. You can subscribe to my new newsletter, Pep Talks, at bit.ly/pepnews. And you can also follow Going to the Chapel on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Go to the Chapel, and Spencer and Locke on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Spencer and Locke. Just one word all spelled out.
Awesome.
cool.
Well, again, thanks for coming on. We're looking forward to we'll be reading and reviewing the rest of this, Going to the Chapel. Really
Thank
enjoyed it, but thanks so much for coming on.
Of course,
Yes,
my
thank
pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank
See
you,
you,
David.
buddy.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
great. So
Wow,
cool.
great job, Boogie.
Yeah. Whew, I did awesome. I did everything. Yeah.
Oh man, that guy's great, man. I
He
could
is,
talk to
man.
that guy all day.
Me
Yeah, I
too.
could hear his stories and
What
he's
I
so
love is
good.
his passion. When he was talking about Shazam and talking about stuff he wants to write, you
How
see
awesome
the
would that be?
passion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shazam taken over by him. Oh, it'd be so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see Billy go through all this stuff. Like that's never really been touched.
Real life stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
SpongeBob SquarePants wants to know if he has comics available on Comixology. David's gone, but yes, he does have. They are available on Comixology, so check them out. Spencer and Locke's a lot of fun, man. Like
That's
you said,
incredible.
it's
Yeah.
Calvin and Hobbes meets
Sin City.
detective
Yeah.
noir.
Yeah.
I don't compare it to Sin City
I
because I've
wouldn't
never
either, but
seen
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I've never seen that, so I
you
don't
never
get
seen
that
that?
comparison.
You just wonder what who else is going to show up? Will Doonesbury show up?
Right.
Or
Exactly.
it's or
Hagar
I
the
almost-
Horrible shows up.
That'd
I
be
almost
cool.
I want them to do like a family, like the family circus kids, like follow me, and it does the little line thing, and he's finally like, where the heck are you going, man?
Let's see Jeffy get murdered. Hate that little kid.
We're gonna move into some comic reviews, but first I got to share this
Aw.
out because it's only available for I think less than 2 days, maybe less than a day. So if you want the official ComicCast t-shirt, check it out
Yes.
on bonfire.com/ComicCast. The link is also in the description if you're lazy and just want to click it. That's what I would want to do. You might have to copy and paste it. I don't know how good I am at technology, but several colors. You got the dark gray, black, the original OG black ComicCast t-shirt.
Yes.
Thank you, Frank, for grabbing one.
That
Yeah,
blue,
Big Frank. I know Big Frank got one. What'd you
That
get, Big
royal
Frank? I think he
blue.
got the Superman theme is what I'm calling it because I like that one.
Yeah, it's great.
But
Get
check
the
it out.
Get the Talking Balls one because it has more production value.
It does.
Man, why do you hate
We need to
Talking
up
Balls
our
so
game.
much?
He's
I don't
jealous.
hate it.
He's jealous.
That's what it is.
The Talking Balls
I'm
one needs
jealous.
like
I'm jealous
beer
of
stains
sports.
and like barbecue stains and stuff.
You can't be jealous of something you have no idea about.
Yeah,
You're just
can.
jealous of my Talking Balls egghead shirt. How amazing is that? Did you guys? I showed it to you.
That's
Didn't I?
great.
That's so funny. Let's talk about some comic books. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear about freaking Talking Balls. I guess I'll kick it off. DCeased, A Good Day to Die, #1, written by Tom Taylor, pencils by Laura Braga and Derek Robertson, I guess. Inks by Richard Friend, Trevor Scott, and Derek Robertson again. Busy guy. Colors by Rain Barreto. Letters by, I can't read my writing, Seda Tim Fonte. Thank you, person. This was hands down best thing I read this week. I love
great.
this. Tom Taylor's DCeased series. It's one of those, it just surprised me, man. Everybody comparing it to Marvel Zombies at the beginning, and we didn't think it was going to be that great. Biggest surprise of the year for me. Absolutely love it. But while that main series, it's all about the main characters, right? The Justice League. This issue picks up with Mr. Miracle, Big Barda, Mr. Terrific, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, and Constantine. This was fast-paced, man. This issue was, and it was pretty thick. Felt pretty thick, but it flew by. But this team, they're bouncing around from one plan to another. I think Mr. Terrific had 3 different ideas or plans in place. Tom Taylor has made it clear nobody is safe in this story. I love that Back to the Future moment with Booster Gold and Blue Beetle.
So rad.
Absolutely amazing.
You
and
killed my dad. You killed my great-great-grandfather. He's dead now.
Is the fate of the universe really in the hands of John Constantine?
Right.
Sure. Who else?
I don't know.
Shit has hit the fan this hard. Who else
Dr.
do you want in
Fate.
charge?
You got Dr. Fate there as well, and
I don't know if this one issue really
That
even
is-
matters in the grand scheme, but this was great. I love this issue.
I liked it a lot too. Like
dude,
you
how
said,
great was that opening
fast-paced,
panel?
fun.
The boom tube.
Right.
Oh yeah, man.
I like Big Barda and Miracle's little chat back and forth. How you feel? I'm okay with it. Oh well. Everybody I've ever known and cared about is dead. They were kind of a-holes.
I like how he goes out on a Cher song. Like, I like Cher.
And then she dogs it for her. You really going
Yeah.
on a Cher song?
It was so funny, and I'm
Yeah.
legit singing it in my head as I'm
Right.
reading
But
it.
that's what this issue is all about, dude. Really good character moments. Tom Taylor, he knew these characters. Constantine felt like Constantine. I could hear the accent in my head. Him having to kill his homeboy. And then he's
R.I.P.
making fun of it afterwards. And I had to sit in his ashes while I saved the car. Oh, it's just great.
Like
Tom
he talks to
Taylor.
Mr. Miracle, he's like, "Yeah, my whole entire home planet exploded." He's like, "All right, well, it's not a competition here, buddy."
Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah. Just great moments. Tom Taylor can't lose. I hope this universe, this sort of Elseworld story of the DC Zombies goes on forever. I love it.
Me too. I could read this forever. I love it.
Yeah, I
like
think
it a
you
lot.
guys keep kind of comparing it to Injustice. You could just make it its own thing and just keep doing it, man.
Please
Yep.
do that, Tom Taylor. Please.
If you're listening, Tom,
Yeah.
know that we
He
love
is.
you,
Of course he
and
is.
we would never say anything negative
All
about
the
you to
pros love
offend
us.
you.
Adam, tweet him. Yeah.
Don't,
pros
Tom
love us.
Taylor, don't make up lies about me, what I said, because I would never say what some people accuse me of saying. But
geez.
Tom's a good guy, and I know he would never do that.
That's right.
We'll piss off actual legends later on in the podcast, so don't worry.
Oh yeah, that's coming. Oh gosh.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't- Can we skip that?
Yes, please. Can we? That'd be great because I love that legend. I love that guy, but I don't even want to go over the story. I'm not. I refuse to go over the story.
We have to. It's the book of the week, bro.
Yeah, we got to talk about
I'll tell
something.
you who it's written and drawn by, and that's it, buddy.
I just won't tag him. How about that? That was
Right.
my mistake.
All right.
Yeah, everybody. in the live
He's
chat's
old
like,
as hell. He probably doesn't
What's he
understand how
talking
social
about?
media
Yeah.
works anyway.
Yeah, exactly. He's not on it.
He's got his
Chad Johnson
granddaughter
knows
over
what
there
he's talking
helping.
about. Chad Johnson's the one that smartened me up to that whole mess. Let's move on.
Yes.
Awesome.
Everything #1.
Everything #1, written by Christopher Cantwell, art by I.N.J. Colbert, letters by Steve Wands.
Thank you, Steve, the master of the wand.
Thanks,
That's
Steve.
right. It's magic. It's magic, Harry Potter. I went literal with that. Anyway, story takes place in Holland, Michigan, where a new department store called Everything is opening. The characters that we are introduced to is Eberhard Friendly, who is the city manager, Shirley, the store manager of Everything, and who seems to be the main protagonist, I think,
Surely
Lori.
she can't be the
Lori, who is she is involved in real estate in some form, but we don't know a whole lot about her yet, except she loves eggs and vodka for breakfast, I believe.
Tasty.
Raw eggs
And vodka. Well,
you got to get your protein in there.
Yeah, and the vodka, pasteurizes it. It kills the bacteria.
Okay.
So she's healthy. She's healthy.
What I'm doing for breakfast now.
Yep. The story itself, it very slow build, but you can tell something just is not right with this town, with this department store. And that's about it. I really could. This is one of those books where I couldn't tell if I liked it or not.
Yeah,
I felt like this was an issue of Ice Cream Man, but it's being stretched out into a series.
Yeah, I don't think I'm smart enough to understand what's going on in this. I think it's trying to say something, maybe consumerism, runaway capitalism, maybe it hasn't gotten there yet. Either way, I don't think I'm smart enough to understand or like this.
But you can follow House of X, but you can't follow this.
I'm thinking this is another one of those books that's
#comics.
That's going to be probably better once everything is out and you can buy the volume.
Completely agreed. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we never got Rocky IV talk in with.
I wanted to get that in so bad, dude. And he brought up Riley Grant. It's like, oh, I'm friends with him, and then he brought up Brian Hill. It's like, oh, I'm friends. Like, I talk to him every now and then too. I was like, oh man, I want some Rocky IV, and then it slipped my mind towards the end.
Oh wow!
Surely to goodness, he's got some Rocky references in
next
him.
Time.
This was I did not enjoy this. I kept waiting for the hook, and you got to give it to me in the first issue. And like you said, maybe he's telling a story and building to something, and that we just don't know it yet. But you got to give me something in issue 1. I legit felt like I was just living in my real life, going to Walmart or something.
Yeah, and I thought that may have been the point at one point. To just show the monotony of consumerism, but it kept going other places.
I think the hook was intended to be this entire first issue, not necessarily a gotcha or a button at the end. I think the entire issue is supposed to be the hook, kind of like the Blues Travelers song, The Hook.
We'll bring you back. And just didn't do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There wasn't. It's like there wasn't anything in this first issue that really made me want to say I got to get the second issue. But at the same time, I can tell something is going on and that I would need to get the second issue and the third issue to figure that out.
So that this first issue isn't wasted is what you're saying.
Yes, which is like it'd be better
like
reading it in trade so that you
can shut up
full story.
Saying. I read Transformers still. I'm just saying. I'm
still waiting. Fantastic Four is getting good now. Transformers still sucks.
It does.
So the art's pretty good, but I mean, I think the colors are like this awesome. The colors really shine in this book.
Agreed.
It was well written. Like I said, I just kept waiting for that thing, and I never got it. That was my problem with the book.
Definitely.
And
100% agree, Book.
And you saw Friendly's Eberhard at the end.
I love Friendlies. Yeah, I was ever
toward the end.
Let's move on. Something is killing the children. Number 1. I wanted to say this when he was talking, when David Pepose was talking about this book being mentioned with him, and I was like, "Oh man, your book was better."
Oh, you didn't like it, dude? I loved it. I thought it was amazing.
No, yeah, let's get into it. I'll tell you guys why.
Something is killing the children. Number 1, The Angel at Archer's Peak. James Tiny in the 4th. Weather de la Edera doing some art. Miguel Muerto doing the coloring with And World Design, which is a weird name, Mom. Anyway, he did the letters.
If you're listening.
This is a monster horror story delivered quite well, I thought, by this creative team. There's a murder of a group of kids with a single witness, which also coincides with other children missing and killed in this small town. We follow this single witness. We get to know him a little bit as he deals with the aftermath. But we also follow this secondary character who turns out to be a monster hunter of sorts, which is at least that's what we're led to believe. And they are going to team up to hunt this something is killing the children monster. I like this quite a bit, Boog. I'm not sure.
Me too.
When you're talking about the premise, it sounds great.
Yeah, there was nothing really
great.
special about anything here, but the pacing was great. The way Tynion went back and forth, just his choices with the way he delivered the story worked very well for me. And yes, this is your run-of-the-mill monster. Any monster story where there's kids involved. You know, there was a little bit of Goonies elements in here, but the way Tynion delivered everything by going back and forth, and it just worked for me. It worked very well. I like this quite a bit.
I thought the opening was great, dude. The opening, the kid telling the story at a slumber party.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, the next, goes in the forward in the future, and he's like crying. He's like, I didn't know what happened. And but it brings me to another point. It's like, how? It's not like how did he know that's going to happen? But did this monster? Is it a human a conscious monster thing? But then again, it's like
potential there.
Yeah. But then again, like this girl's like a monster hunter, so it's like it just doesn't really line up. And then she also has like a weird little chip thing on the side of her head. You notice
there's something else. Yes.
She brushed her hair back. She had a little chip and I don't know. So I was like, okay,
and that
what's
girl,
going on
that
there?
monster hunter's getting a phone call from someone who's directing her. That's another aspect that could unravel as this. It's now an ongoing. This was initially solicited as a mini, but Boom picked it up as an ongoing, which they have been doing once in future. Was first pushed as a mini series, but it's now an ongoing. So it was really cool knowing that aspect of it too, because you could see where Tynion can just say, no, that's just part of this story, and then drop it. But he could also drill down deep and get into that monster hunter girl's backstory, or even that principal who was the new guy there. They could roll him into it. I just really like this a lot, man.
It's funny because I didn't know it was going to be ongoing. I was going to say that I could really see this being a great little short 6-issue kind of run thing, and I really wanted to see an end, a conclusion. But now that it's ongoing, I'm like, wow, do I really want to forever? I think I'll give a couple issues a shot because I want to know more about this world and what's happening for sure. But
if it ever gets stale
forever,
if it starts getting stale, I'll drop it. Because again, like you said, it started off solicited as a miniseries. So is the writer then going to have to eke every ounce, every drop of blood out of that rock, to give us more and more issues? So if it gets bad, I'll drop it. Again, there was nothing special about anything, but the way Tynion delivered the story just really worked for me. I liked it a lot.
What about you, Bug? What was your grievances?
You keep saying there was nothing special, and I think that's what I wanted. Again, listening to you guys talk about it, if I had never read this, I would say I have got to go read this immediately. This sounds like something
I recommend it.
I would love. I don't know. I don't know what my problem was with it. I think I wanted something maybe a little bit more dark.
A little punch. Maybe
I was thinking about
those
Infidel.
Kids all slaughtered, dude. That was pretty dark.
I don't know. You had all these characters die, and I felt like there was no weight or heaviness from it. I felt like, okay, this is part of something that happened. Think back to your childhood. If all these kids died, don't you? I mean, that's deep, man. And instead, it's like, here's a monster hunter. I'm gonna go kill the monster. Let's go do it. Yay! Yeah. And it's like, what? I don't know. I don't know what my problem was with this book.
I think it would have been cooler if we would have saw the kids get slaughtered sequentially.
Maybe.
Despite how great the
when
was.
dude's recounting everything that happened to the monster
hunter, I think it would have had more of an impact to see it happen
gruesome.
as it went along.
Half of his friend is talking to him still. That's gruesome.
This is hurting the story too. That you all talking about that. When I pulled up the PDF, two pages wouldn't load, and it's when it showed the murder.
Oh no!
Or the kids. So did it actually show the monster and the violence?
Yeah, it showed the monster and the kids getting ripped in half and stuff.
There was kids in trees.
That could have been. That could have hurt the story too. But even still, it's not as much seeing the gore as much as it is the effects of the aftermath. You know?
I feel like it was kind of shot for shock's sake. You know what I mean? I think it would have made more sense to have it in the beginning when the kids saw it and happened, and then go to the detective and talk about what happened. Instead of, just a flashback and then you see the slaughter. It doesn't really have much of an impact as I thought it should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Boogie on this because I love the art. I love the art. That really immersed you in the atmosphere of this story.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Atmosphere is the best word for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the story itself just seemed like, of course, this is just the first issue introducing. We don't know where it's going yet.
Yeah.
But the premise at this point just seems like almost like another Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
And I think Frank,
It is.
it's like Frank, I could definitely see Jim Ross just popped in my head. Shades of it.
Okay.
And what was that book we did not too long ago where it was the grandmother?
Once in the Future.
Well,
That's the
yeah,
one with the Arthurian stuff.
Yeah.
The Arthur-
Yeah.
Arthur.
So it's like I mean, this is another take on it, and I hope it just like blows it out of the water. Most definitely, I'm not dogging on it. It just did
Well,
not.
it sounds like you are.
It just did
a little
not.
bit.
Thanks, Gomer. But
Just kidding, man.
it just did not grab me.
Yeah, I am kind of
Other than
bummed
the
that
art, the story did not grab me.
I am kind of bummed that it's going to be like a Monster Hunter book. I was more involved, when it was considered a mystery of what the monster is or where it's at or whatever. I like the mystery of that whole entire finding the monster, not so much as, oh, there's monsters and we got to hunt them down. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I like some mysterious worlds, make
Sure.
it crazy like Twin Peaks or something,
I thought of it's like when I was reading it, one of the characters that wasn't even an actual character that jumped out to me was the little girl in the wagon.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
With the eye patch? What?
Yeah,
What just happened
No
here?
arms or
I
legs.
mean, what was
Yeah.
going on with that? I was even towards the end of the book, I was like, well, what happened with that little girl in the
Yeah.
wagon?
She just got a shower and left.
Yeah, did you just tug her back home in the wagon and then drop her off at the front door of her house? I don't.
Ding dong.
So yeah, I love, like I said, I love the art, but the story just, I don't know, it just didn't.
I agree. Like we're all kind of dogging on it now, but I mean, I'm still invested in it, and I highly recommend it. And I'm definitely picking up issue 2.
I just like the way Tynion told the story, and I want to read more of him telling the story.
Well, that's because he's a great writer.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Well written.
I think putting it all together now, what I wanted was a real life story, not a Monster Hunter slasher type thing. I wanted horror of a real, you know what I mean? Real
More
story.
down
Like
home,
witches,
more homey.
maybe. You know what I mean? Like
That story is one of my favorite horror comic books ever.
Yeah.
It's great.
Same.
Oh,
Or like
man.
what's the Cullen Bunn one? I always look to my shelf because I can't remember what it's called. We just talked about it.
Harrow County.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's a little
Agreed.
more darker though.
Yeah.
Let's move on. X Minute.
Oh, this is me again too. Hickman, Pepe Larraz, Marte Gracia, Clayton Cowles, of course. Clayton.
Yes.
Thank you. And Tom Muller on that design. It will be done short and sweet here. The suicide mission that Charles sent Scott and the team on actually turned out to be a suicide mission. They won. They destroyed the mother mold, but they all dead.
Dude,
All
that
of
was
them gone.
amazing.
A few cool things here. The charts and graphs were awesome. It's the only reason I'm reading these. The rundown of all the mutant massacres in history. And then they called Wanda Maximoff the Pretender. Dude, I loved that so much.
Yeah.
Because of that nonsense they did, taking the brother and sister, the Maximoffs, and turned them into Inhumans or whatever the hell they ended up being just because of the MCU. Stupid, utter nonsense. But Hickman's like, no, I'm going to flip it and make Wanda Maximoff just the biggest D-bag ever. And I loved it. The last 4 or 5 pages of this are nothing but awesome throwback rage panels showing all of the crap that the mutants have been through.
Yeah,
I
like
thought
all
it
those
was very
spotters,
powerful.
like Genosha.
Yeah, I thought it was very good, very powerful. Powers of X number 4 is out next week. That's it. That's all we got.
Are
Gosh.
these issues worth money for some reason?
I think it's.
They're all selling out. They're all.
Yeah.
They've all gotten second printings thus far. So
Because I finally canceled it and I emailed Dwayne and he never buys anything back. And he emailed me back and said, "Okay, got that drop for you. What issues did you buy again? Because I'll buy them back."
Yeah.
Wow.
He said the number 1 issues of both he had plenty of, but he
Yeah.
wanted to buy back anything after the first issue that I had.
Wow.
So I was curious what
of
I-
House of
What are you up
X?
to, Dwayne? What are you up to? Huh?
Of
Yeah, I
House
mean,
of X,
Like,
Powers of X.
It's such a great
Yeah.
run, you know, already. Like,
It's
it's
an
hard to
importance.
find.
There's
these
an
first press
importance
scenes,
to
you know
it.
what I mean?
There's
Yeah.
a lot of speculating. I feel
Yeah.
like the speculation market
Yeah.
is blowing up to the point of conspiracy. It's
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
it's
Well,
this
it's-
issue 3. This happened, which could lead to this, which
Exactly.
a lot of
might
people
mean
think that
this.
this run is what the Disney X-Men is going to be. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot
And
of
I'm sitting here
speculation
like
happen with that. So,
like gold jacket, green jacket. Who gives a shit?
That's where I'm at now, man. I'm
There's
done.
an
I'm
importance
done.
here. You know, Hickman, they made a big deal out of it. So Hickman is carrying through.
Mhm.
You know, they said, okay, we're going to make this a big deal. Hickman's like, all right, you wanted a big deal. And it's huge.
Yes.
And it's literally changing the X-Men forever. And I don't think we should gripe that the speculators are harping on it. I think that's a good thing.
Boogie,
It's just like any other market,
did you
man. It
read the
rises
last,
and falls.
the prior issue before this one?
Which one was
Powers of
that?
10.
No,
Powers
House
of
of
No,
X.
it was House of X
House
3,
of
right?
X3.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked House of X, and that's why
Oh, he's
I
all
told.
locked up.
Well, I'm saying, like, if you read that last issue and this one that came out, like, there's two little story, you know, back to back. Just this issue is going to be in like probably my top 3 best single issues of 2019. It was incredible. I think it's one of the best things like written. It was amazing. But I mean, to get a little, you know, back information, you need the prior issue. So I highly
Right.
recommend reading those back to back and just see what you think.
I was
I'm not
just-
saying
and
to
I-
keep- I'm not saying to keep buying them, but like,
Yeah,
Well,
lots
I
of
know it's
action,
a-
great moments, character moments.
They're
Yeah,
tied
it
in
had it all
together,
there.
and I know that. I know that you got to read both, but I always seem to enjoy House of X and Powers of 10. I was just like, I don't like this.
I feel you.
Yeah.
All right,
No,
let's
you're
move
right.
in.
House of X is easier. It really is.
The
Yeah.
decoded
It's more
message at the end
straightforward.
said, "Next, something sinister." So that's probably bringing in Mr. Sinister to get his story of what happens. So
Well,
I'm
because
excited
all
to see
these
that.
characters who died are not
Right.
those actual characters. They're clones. And
Exactly.
they're just going to build some more, just like the
Mhm.
first page of House of X #1.
Right.
So,
And then it
wait.
says also then society. So I guess that's part of Powers of 10 somehow. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But I thought it was pretty funny because there's all that Joker hype and then it said society when I decoded that message. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
that's some
Oh
symmetry
gosh,
there.
yeah, he's decoding the messages. I just go to Reddit.
that's
I
hilarious.
just go to Reddit.
You go to Reddit, and Jason's done all the work.
He's
and
down there with his
posted it there.
decoder ring.
Yeah,
He's
dude,
the one that
totally.
posted it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, dude.
Let's get into some random reviews. Let's just hit a couple. Let's hit them quick for the
I got
sake
a
of time.
bunch. I got a bunch, man.
Well, I trust you, dude. You fly through 48 books in 2
Do it together.
minutes. Random reviews presented by collarandelbowbrand.com. Check them out. Use the promo code ComicCast. Save 10% on some fantastic wrestling merchandise. All the links are in the description. We didn't talk about this at all, so I'm just going to jump into some stuff. If you guys want to comment, you can, but let's just hit them fast. Fantastic Four, number 14, Dan Slott, Paco Medina, Jesus Arbitroy. Dude, amazing cover from Mike Diodato
yeah,
Jr.
yeah.
Amazing. Reed has come up with this crazy idea of building the Marvel 2 and recreating the original mission that birthed the Fantastic Four.
Mhm.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right. It worked
I
so
know
well
you-
the first time.
I know you guys give me so much hell for sticking with this book. Dan Slott's hitting in his stride, man. He is finding his footing, writing the Fantastic Four. The characters are there. It's worth it. I may have wasted $60.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
$60 to get to this point. I kept saying it back then. I think all that wedding crap and the big
Yeah, it
anniversary issue, I think that handicapped him going into writing Fantastic
That's
Four.
fair.
I
That's
I
fair.
feel like he's hitting his stride now and telling the stories he wants to tell. Berserker Unbound number 2, Jeff Lemire, Mike Diodato Jr., our homeless guy from issue 2, provide some good comedy here, man. I didn't think I was going to enjoy his character. Gomer doesn't like this. I don't care. This is the type of guy that never shuts up, but then he says people talk too much. And our hero finally journeys into the series.
What a missed opportunity with this series, man.
Really? I like
It
it.
was walk to the shelter and then walk back. That's all they did.
I like the
I was
relationship between the
Conan
homeless guy and the barbarian.
There's
I
no
think it's
real
fun,
relationship. They
dude.
can't understand a word each other is saying.
That's what's so funny.
I wasn't expecting a comedy book.
But that's what we're getting. And
I
if
don't
that's what Jeff
know.
Lemire wants to tell me, then I'm in. I'm in.
I'm all for the fish out of water, but I was expecting this dude to be kicking the shit out of taxi cabs and beating up
He's eating at a
NYPD.
homeless shelter. It's
Yeah, he's
I
hanging
love
out.
it. I love it.
No,
I love
Not
it.
a fan. Not a fan.
Sia stars number 3, Jason Aaron, Dennis Hallam. They've lost me. I love the artwork on this book. I love the father-son stuff, but other than that, I read this issue twice and still didn't care. This is definitely the worst issue of the series so far. I pulled the first arc, and I think I'm gonna buy it and pay for it. But
I dropped it. I
I
dropped
dropped
this.
after issue 1. I couldn't
Yeah.
stand that kid.
Yeah, I read issue 2, but yeah, I was like, no more after that issue 2.
That's all I got. I read some other stuff, but you guys go get it.
You want me to go?
I didn't say Gomer, did I? I
I
said
thought you said you Gomer go.
because that's how I talk. You Gomer, go. What's on Gomer's pile?
Triage number 1. This is a DH book. Philip Sevi and Frank Savetkovich.
That's pretty good, man. Cause like the cover looked awesome.
It was a truly imaginative twist on like a multiverse sort of story where there's an unsuspecting nurse who gets caught up in some universal craziness, meeting her alternate selves.
Oh, cool.
Who one of them happens to be a post-apocalyptic badass, and the other one is a superhero. It's
Awesome.
crazy, dude. It's so fun.
I gotta check that out then.
Yeah, I had a great time reading that. Batman TMNT number 5, James Tynion, again, Freddie E. Williams with Kevin Eastman doing some art here. Might be my favorite crossover of the year, even with Justice League and Black Hammer. Very
wow.
good. I just loving it so much. Justice League 31. Oh my God. Again, James
Dude,
Tynion, Scott
Do you think
Snyder,
this
Jorge
ties in with
Jimenez.
Doomsday Clock, man?
Huh?
Because do you think this kind of ties in with Doomsday Clock?
I
a little
don't know
bit?
what the hell's going on in
Because
Doomsday Clock,
you know,
dude.
since like Dr.
Look at
Manhattan,
this photograph.
Nothing can tie into Doomsday Clock unless it wants to wait months on you.
Right? It's like, hey, I've been waiting on this story.
because the thing
Jeff,
is, like, you know,
what the hell?
the Flash and Green Lantern, you know, there's no memory of the JSA. Is what's
Exactly.
going on. You know, no one
Because
remembers them.
possibly Manhattan erased all that
Right.
from happening. But Manhattan erased all of that from happening. It's obviously happening
Right.
in the past that they went to in Justice League 31. I'm more interested in the Commandy future, which is so rad. I love Commandy futures. But man, this is just so awesome and weird and wonderful. My favorite thing. In
I
DC.
loved it. I love Justice League.
Love it so
I thought it was
much.
so cool too, seeing just the interaction between the two Flashes and the two Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
You know, Alan Scott. I love seeing Alan Scott in general, but he's just like, I don't know what the core is or what is. You know, I would say it's so cool. I was great interactions.
I thought it was gonna come off as this stupid explanation to the reader, but it ended up being this great banter between, you know, like you said, the Green Lanterns and the Flash. Is just really well done.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you bring up Doomsday Clock in that context, because yes, it would be amazing, because Justice League is stemming out of Dark Knight's Metal, which came out of that whole barrier breaking, the source wall breaking in that event. No Justice, I guess it was. But if they were able to do that, say, oh, no, everything is actually, you know, connected. Yeah, that would be mind blowing, because Marvel forgets about an event the day the last issue of the event comes out. And no, that didn't happen. But
I thought it was so cool in Doomsday Clock as well. Not to go into it.
No, we can.
But it's just to say that, like, it was really cool seeing Lex Luthor bring up Rebirth and see Wally West and Barry's reuniting in the background. He was there when it happens. All the way back in Rebirth. So that was super cool.
He cemented himself as the smartest man in the DC universe.
No kidding.
And if they're setting it up where him and Ozzy are going to go back and forth in the last issue, I'm down for that, dude. I'm so anxious to see that. Because in this issue, we'll just get into Doomsday Clock.
Sure.
They revealed a whole lot of what Ozzy's plan was and how he got over and how he did exactly what he did in Watchmen. And it's like we didn't see it coming.
Right?
We should have assumed that that's exactly what Ozzy was going to do. Orchestrate this entire fiasco to bring down the people he wanted to bring down. And then, again, just like in Watchmen, you've got this side story where Dr. Manhattan is trying to rationalize his own humanity. And now he's trying to rationalize his humanity in a way that's totally different, because it's ending. He believes that his existence is ending because Superman's going to punch him. And that's going to happen. That was the cliffhanger. It ends just before the moment where Superman's going to punch Manhattan.
Countdown, dude, got my heart racing.
Oh my gosh.
Do you think they'll do a cover for this last issue that's like the Superman Muhammad Ali cover, but
Right, but it's Manhattan.
Ali, it's Dr. Manhattan.
We'll find out in 2021 when
Did
the
you all
last issue
mention
comes
the
out.
Green Lantern?
Do what?
The Green Lantern reveal?
He's in the jail with that girl
Yeah,
from the Legion.
I thought I was like,
They're not supposed to be there.
Right.
That's
I
the
thought he
reveal.
died in the train.
I was like, is
yeah,
that Kingdom
exactly.
Come Green Lantern?
I see.
And then Saturn Girl just disappeared. Like
She's
like,
not supposed to be there.
Yeah, she just realized she's
and
not.
that's why she blinked out of existence. She was, and that if you look at Saturn Girl's power, it fits perfectly. She actually thought herself into existence, and then when she realized that she wasn't supposed to be existing, it stopped, and she wasn't. Oh, dude, it was so deep. So it's worth the wait. People keep griping about how this book is late.
Right.
I get it, but man, it's worth it.
I say if you have no interest in reading Doomsday Clock whatsoever, and were just curious and get everything spoiled for you, I would say pick up this current issue because you see all the plans, you get some background information.
Yeah.
And sure, you'll be a little
lost. Too.
Yeah.
And she's pregnant, I guess, and that's the reason they're still around because her baby's got big plans, dude. Yeah. We could do a whole hour on Doomsday Clock.
No doubt. I read Doomsday Clock was the first thing I read, and I was like, "This is going to be like hands down my pick of the week," and it kind of is. But then I read X-Men after that, and after that, I was just like emotionally done. I had to take like an hour or two break.
Right, exhausting.
Especially not to go back to X-Men, but at the end with the line just "no more," and then all the collages at the end and the art and like. Dude, it was so moving. Like I feel like that should just be someone's political platform. It's just say no more, dude.
And that no more thing. It's cool because it fits in the context of the story, but it also fits in the overall context of the theme of this issue with what Wanda said during House of M when she said no more mutants.
Right.
It's sort of the same outcry that Charles is having. It's such a great throwback, dude.
These two were so incredible. It was a great week for comics, man. Great week for comics.
Punisher 15, Rosenberg and Kudransky, penultimate chapter of the War on the Streets arc. There's still some of it's so fun. Still some of the best stuff at Marvel right now. Punisher and this team getting together to fight Zemo and the Thunderbolts has just been so great.
That one dude called Night Thrasher Skateboard Man.
Skateboard Man.
Yeah, he's like blasted with like magic. He's like, please don't give me cancer.
Right, yeah, a Nuclear Man blasts him. The part where Ghost Rider punches through Ghost and Ghost's like, oh, an actual demon from hell. And it's like, oh, man.
Yes.
Yeah, just ramping up so great. Dude, and still the comedy with the bad guys, man.
The villains. Yeah, dude.
Zemo talking. What, Zaz, not Zaz. It's the Marvel version of Zaz, whatever the hell his name is. But he's watching porn, just hanging out. Oh man, I loved it. Can we talk about one?
He's just watching porn.
Yeah, Jigsaw. Yeah, he's watching porn. Legion of Superheroes.
Like, I see you're abusing yourself.
Yeah, everyone's abusing everybody, and Jigsaw's abusing himself. Yeah, it's so great. Legion of Superheroes Millennium #1. Bendis, Lee, Gwyn, Sorrentino, Lynn Marajo. Okay, easily the worst thing I read this week.
What a letdown.
There's no Legion in this book at all. Yet another classic bait and switch with a DC Legion book where we're promised one thing and it is not delivered.
What a turd.
And this one has that Bendis twist to it, which only makes things worse.
Dude, I thought
can't we just get a freaking Legion book, dude?
Yeah, I know. I thought like Rose and Thorn was like a Bendis character, and I was like, of course you would make her like at 4 in front. She's been around, I guess, since like Flash or something like a long time ago. But so weird for him to choose her to bring back in such a powerful way, like over and over and over again. Like why?
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't get it. I was actually when I first saw that there was a Legion book, I was like, oh cool, and then I saw he was doing it, and I said nope.
I did like seeing Batman Beyond. Like, that was really cool.
They're doing like 2 issues before he even actually starts the series.
It's a 2-issue build up to the series, and that's my problem. DC has kept the Legion out of comics for years. That's their choice. But then every time, because with the New 52, I think they tried to bring them back and it failed. Because every time they try to bring it back, they always try to write in some excuse as to why the Legion haven't been around. And the reason they haven't been around is because you just haven't decided to write them, DC. So every time they do it, it gets bogged down in this stupid story where they're trying to explain away why the Legion haven't been around. Just give us a damn Legion book.
And they retcon Rose and Thorn, so now she's like immortal or lives forever or whatever. Like, why, dude?
Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, it was really cool seeing like Batman Beyond. That was awesome. That was cool seeing Commandy also. But like besides that, there was like brief moments. But It's not good, dude. Like, why does this even exist? It's so
exactly.
stupid.
Yeah, I was so mad, and I'm sorry I went on in Gomer's pile, but there was so many good books. This week,
dude,
man.
I agree. It was
And
amazing.
there was the book of the week.
My other huge pick was sorry to throw one more in there is Absolute Carnage Symbiote Spider-Man. I keep telling everyone I see this to read this one-off. It's a one-off. That's it. Absolute Carnage Symbiote Spider-Man #1.
Is it Peter David still?
I think so. It was
Peter
so
David.
cool. Like, it starts off. It shows the how the symbiote got from the Fantastic Four building to Peter Parker's apartment. I guess it's actual continuity, an old school comic where it possessed like some random stranger, whatever, and then he like blanked out and he woke up like next to Peter Parker's apartment and wondered how he got there. When he was just at the Fantastic Four building. But then since it goes into Absolute Carnage, tie-in, because Carnage is hunting down all these codices, all the codexes. So of course he's being hunted or whatever by Carnage because the symbiote was a part of him very briefly as it was. But
sure.
It's just incredible, man. It's so good.
You be saying wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Yeah.
So is it time to get into the book of the week?
Oh God!
I'm glad I didn't have this.
Adam's
man.
right. This won't take long.
I'm glad I didn't have this.
All right, let's get into the outright geekery book of the week. Is that for outright geekery or for the book of the week?
Both.
Book of the week.
Both.
OutrightGeekery.com, your one-stop shop for news, reviews, previews, podcasts, everything geek, maybe a little football too.
Yeah, our most popular podcast is not comics, not action figures, not Transformers, not awesome. It's freaking Tennessee Vols. Leroy's so pissed.
Is it really? Is he pissed
No,
now?
it's more of like a fun, bitter sort of pissed.
You need to screen capture how many YouTube views we got on a couple of episodes ago. He'll be really pissed.
I told him if he took the bullies to YouTube, they do a lot better, but they record at like 2 a.m.
Oh,
dude,
wow.
if they would live stream, they would kill us.
Yeah.
Maybe he should do what's that football game? Video game.
Anyways.
Yeah, he should play Madden.
Yeah, he
or
should play Madden.
or NFL Game Day or whatever, NCAA Game Day.
They should totally like record it, like, and then just premiere it at a better time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Still not the same.
Yeah,
It's better when you got that live chat. You can read while you go along.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's talk about the book of the week.
Okay. Written and drawn by Neil Adams, legendary artist, dude. I love his old stuff so much, man. And he's a nice guy. I've heard bad Neil Adams stories. People have like he's like really cold or mean, whatever, or grumpy or demanding. But he's always been cool each time I met him. I love this guy so much, and I had to even ordered like one of those Detective 1000 covers from him that got an autograph and stuff. So he's cool, man. But this comic, geez, man, it broke my heart because I was looking forward to it so much. I had it really like hyped in my head for some reason. And I was really looking forward to it, and it was just really dumb.
I'm not a fan of this book right now, but call me 30 years ago, and maybe.
Yeah, it did. It felt like an old like 80s comic, I would say. Like not even cool 60s 70s comic, but like a bad 80s comic.
Maybe 90s even.
Maybe
90s Batman,
yeah, dude. I mean, right off the bat, like in the story, it tells you, oh yeah, like read like Nightfall and something else. It's like,
go read better comics to enjoy this one.
To understand it, or the references, and like I didn't, so I don't know what's going on, really, dude.
I had read those, and this still didn't give me a really an insight into making it feel like a better quality story.
Yeah,
trying to be politically correct. I want to piss off a legend.
Yeah, I agree, man. And
I didn't tag him. He won't make
man.
up stuff that you said.
All right, cool. He is a legend, man. I love and respect that guy so much, man. What's crazy is that this is just 1 out of 6. It's ongoing.
Yeah, they're gonna keep doing it.
Dude,
yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna read them.
You want to read a good Ra's al Ghul story? Go read Brian Hill's run on Batman and the Outsiders. He's telling a great story in that book, and all of you guys dropped it and complained. You should be reading it because it's freaking good. And I think issue 5 comes out this week.
Watch when Ra's showed up on the Arrow TV series. That was an awesome little arc they did, especially cool. Sword fight.
I'm a big fan of his grandson.
Oh yeah, me too. Me as well. Yeah, the art, I didn't like the art. I didn't like the story. The weird thing about the art, though, is I felt like the panels that were close up on the faces were great. But then all the other panels showing the action or the wide shots or whatever, I was like, ugh. But then I'd hit a panel close up of someone's face. I was like, man, that's nice.
Nice.
That's nice. Very nice.
Very nice. All right.
But the show, I enjoyed Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 #5 a lot more than this book.
It was so good.
Yeah.
You could go back to random reviews if you want.
No, I would like to actually, dude. I would really like to. Dude.
I love that
Thanks
idea.
a lot, Gaumer.
Dude,
I love that
Old Man
idea.
Quill. Old Man Quill is great. Savage Avengers. I want to shout out Battle Pug as well because I'm friends with that
Oh,
dude.
Battle Pug was cool.
Battle Pug was
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
Check out Battle Pug.
It was really cool. I forgot how much I liked Battle Pug.
Right? Yeah. I remember reading some of those webcomics like back in the day. I got like maybe halfway through or something.
I have the full collected they sent me months ago. And, it's so good. Yeah. The Pug Pendium.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Discount bin, Boog. Are you waiting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess yeah. I'm gonna say $1.99. Just because I like Neil Adams so much as a guy and his art, dude. I love just all the stuff he's done. But
10-year-old me would have loved this.
It's not for me, man. If you're a 10-year-old that is from 1970s,
if you found a time machine,
yeah, dude. Yeah.
Boogie.
We have cops shooting terrorists. So Batman beats up the cops. This goes in the freaking discount bin.
Yeah.
It's trash.
Yeah. That was actually a great part of it for me.
I don't care.
Do it, Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
Beat up cops that are stopping terrorists.
The cops
Whatever.
using excessive force, I guess. At the time, that's what he's trying to say. But
They were Ra's al Ghul cops.
Very poorly.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like a terrorist, then it's like different. But I mean, if it's like just a regular crime happening, yeah, cops shouldn't use excessive force. You should get knocked the fuck out. Sorry, 1 F-bomb, right? Sorry,
That's just one. I think we're good. I think we might be okay. Everybody just calm down.
And I gave you props, Jason. You use them exactly when they are needed, and that is exactly what it was needed.
In defense of Jason, he's got us flagged one time, but then they reversed it. Okay.
Sorry.
So I think we're okay. Rylan Grant, on the other hand, we needed a counter up here with F-bombs for him.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm gonna make my rating based on what Jason said. So it's your fault, Jason. But you said it's like a bad 1980s comic. Nowadays, where do you find most of those comics?
Mm-hmm.
In the dollar bin, in the discount bin.
That's where I put it.
Gotta go.
It's been a while since we had a 2-fer on the discount bin.
That's a 3-fer.
I never.
Oh, that's right. It's a 3-fer.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if we've ever had. And
you guys,
Jason's one up is just a sympathy.
Yeah,
it was a sympathy dollar.
Do you guys have like a
100%.
collection of discount bin books? Like a worst of list? Do you have like
that would be way too much research.
That'd be a fun
I think the only book that was unanimous
was
it was like that. It wasn't She-Wolf. Was it She-Wolf?
I remember She-Wolf.
She-Wolf.
It was.
I do remember you guys hating on that.
It'd be fun to have like a one-off show, just once of like the worst ones, and then like maybe we'll have to read like 3 of them or something. It's like the worst one, like, and this is why.
Yeah, nobody will hate us for that.
Oh my god!
ComicCast Masochist Edition.
Yeah, tag all the writers. And in there too.
Yeah, I'll get right.
We're shitting on all these books. You guys come in and defend your garbage. How else are they gonna learn?
I love Gomer's like, we're on this again, and then like 10 minutes later, that's that guy.
Oh god!
I was too. I had given it some thought. I slept on it. I'm like, you know what? Forget Chip Zdarsky.
Every time I let it go,
No, it wasn't Chip. It was Christian Ward.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's talk about him some more.
Oh god, don't.
I love his art. I will defend his art every day of my life till the day I die. But I'm sorry.
I shouldn't have tagged him, but at the end of the day, don't lie about what we said because nobody.
It worked and we got a great story out of it.
Yeah, but nobody said what he. The reason I keep saying that over and over and over because he's talking about me directly, and I did not say the words that he says.
Right.
Actually, when there's video evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. He's totally spun the wrong context of it. You know. That was
exactly
not cool.
Yeah.
The way he came off trying to blame Boogie for what Boogie pointed out
Let's
was
just
the
say it.
same
Just say
thing
it.
that Boogie was pointing out.
Yeah.
And he did it just to check a box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, check out Battle Pug number
Yes.
You got a
Yes.
dope cover, too.
I love that
man.
cover.
You got a great cover.
Loved it. The little girl that cusses consistently.
Yeah, she's back.
Freaking awesome.
And she has powers now. That's cool. And then the
Yeah.
little short story, he got his buddy to ride it, and he explained how she got those powers. Yeah,
it was
Team Wolf.
cool.
Oh.
Yeah, Team Wolf.
Very cool.
Battle Pug $3.99. I'm rating at $3.99.
Yeah.
What do you rate it, Boogie?
$3.99. Perfect comic book. All right,
There
that's
you
going to wrap it up for ComicCast issue number 160. We'll be back next week, 2 p.m. on Sunday, live streaming. Big shout out to David Pepose for coming on and chatting. Super nice guy.
Thank you, David.
Awesome.
All the links are in the description. Definitely check out his books. Man, both of them are really good. Really enjoyed them.
Yep.
But that's it for Gaumer, for Jason, for Adam Wade Adams. I'm Boogie Bentley. See you guys next Sunday.
Bye, guys.